This is the Resilient Advisor Show. My name is Jay Coulter, and joining me for this live at lunch episode is Penny Phillips of Thrivos Consulting. Penny's been a regular guest on the show here now for about a month and a half. It's received great reviews, Penny, and I believe one of the reasons that it's become a popular series on the Resilient Advisor Show is because of the topic that we're going to talk about today, the generational divide inside of the financial services industry. And I was telling Penny at the top of the before we launched live that I think Penny has a unique lens because she understands the world of older advisors, which I put myself in, Gen X and baby boomers, but also because of her age, understands the world of the generation behind them, and bridging that gap is really where the problem is going to be. As with all of our live broadcasts, if you want to ask Penny a question on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching, please just type in the comment section and I will pose it to Penny here on the broadcast. If we do post any of your questions, I will send you a complimentary copy of my book, The Resilient Advisor, and I'm going to send it to you whether you want it or not. So send your questions through the comment section. Penny, I'd like to actually turn it over to you and get your lens on this generational gap in our industry.
This is one of those topics that I call the hot topic, right? Because there's always sort of two sides to this challenge. And, my take on it, Jay, and we were talking about this earlier, is that I think, first of all, the industry is obsessed with data and statistics. And so the number of studies that have come out about the millennial employee and who they are, there's countless and countless studies and surveys on it. But I don't think any of the research we've done really gets to the heart of the matter, which is, first of all, there's a misconception about who millennials are, right? Millennials aren't the 20-something-year-olds taking Snapchat pictures and, on social media. Millennials are in their mid-30s. Now, maybe they're still on Snapchat, but they're 35 and they're running businesses. They're, more likely to start a business and be an entrepreneur than their predecessors. They're likely to do it sooner. They're willing to take risks, yada, yada. But the reality is that, and this is the heart of it, this group, when we think of them as employees and folks on a team, have only ever grown up in one type of society, a society where feedback was instant, where positive reinforcement was the norm, not negative reinforcement, and where participation trophies were given out for simply showing up. And so millennials get a bad rap when the reality is that they have no control over these forces and factors that have influenced the way in which they work, succeed, and operate in an organization. The flip side of that is the older gen, the Gen Xers and more so the baby boomers, they've grown up in a different society altogether. And something that I say that's sometimes controversial is because they have seen it a different way and are now adapting, it's the older gen that has the responsibility to change and shift. The younger gen literally can't because they don't know any other way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Can I stop you right there? Because I think that right there is the complete rub, and I'd love to go a little bit deeper on that.
Yeah.
So you postulate that the older generation needs to change. When I look at it through the mind of the older generation, they built the business. They probably sat in a bullpen cold calling for the first 10 years of their career. They hustled and sold their way to build their business. Why do they need to change?
So I think the advisors that are, growing at record rates that we would consider to be the best in the business have done a good job shedding old belief systems and behaviors. And one of those belief systems is the fact that I grinded in this crazy negative reinforcement sales culture to build what I have. And everybody that comes after me has to go through that same, struggle in order to achieve success. And the younger gen has realized you know what, we actually don't have to do it that way. We don't have to stay at an organization for 30 years and build something. We can move around. And, and I think if the older gen sheds that belief system that everybody has to sort of suffer the way I did, it creates this healthier culture in their organization. And so that's what I coach advisors a lot around on both sides, shedding belief systems so that you can create a culture that looks maybe entirely different from the way your business did, 10, 20 years ago. Yeah.
And I was trying to be a little bit antagonistic there because that's the response I get from my clients that are older. And then I usually follow it up because I'm in your camp on this, Penny, and I follow it up with the older established advisor. And I ask, well, where's your sales funnel? Where are the people that you're calling on now? Who were your last 100 cold calls?
Right.
They don't have it because that's not how businesses are built today, and it's not how they are growing.
Great.
Yeah, and I tell you something else that I have noticed is I've been stalking the millennials for about a decade now, and one of the things that has enabled me to do is build a nice social media footprint because I saw what they were doing and tried to kind of stay up with the curve, even for somebody in his 40s. But it's that creative thinking, as in terms of getting in front of not just the next generation of clients, but the Gen Xers and the baby boomers that I think some of the older advisors could benefit from. Have you seen it that way?
I have. And I think this is something that's helpful for any listener who's that baby boomer advisor, right? They hire a younger lead advisor or associate advisor, and they say to them, I have this huge book of business or huge business that you can, cultivate relationships from, and I'm handing you everything on a silver platter. Come in, do your thing. And they're really disappointed when that person doesn't perform as they expect them to. And my message to the older advisor is, have you set expectations? The younger generation not only needs to understand what the goals are, what their personal goals are that relate to the company's goals, but how that actually translates into activities. And so it's that level of mentorship and positive reinforcement and feedback that the younger gen needs in order to be successful as an advisor. And I think to some extent, the older gen is just not willing to do that. In some cases, the firms that are doing great right now are the firms that have solved the generational gap to some extent.
All right, so let's put this into application. And this is top of mind for me because I've probably had 3 of these conversations in the past week and a half. An established advisor, age 50 or older, is looking to bring on a junior partner. The mindset is, I want to bring somebody on who, and it's always this way, Penny, maybe they've got 20 or 30 million under management, so they can pay for themselves. And then I'll let them take care of the bottom half of my book and then do all the work that I don't want to do. And I have rarely have seen that work. What is your guidance to the advisor that has that mindset on bringing on the next generation or a junior partner? What could they do differently?
They're not going to like what I have to say to some extent, I think. The first thing is, look, be realistic. I think everybody wants to imagine that they hire, the first person that they interview and that person stays with them for 30 years. That's not realistic. And so number one, keeping a bank of talent, like literally a short list of people that you feel like culturally are fit. Maybe they're friends of your, son or daughter, or you've met them at a networking event. Always keep a running list of your bench or talent that you could tap if a hire doesn't work out. So that's the first thing. The second thing is being more concerned with revenue and retention as opposed to AUM goals. And what I mean by that is the older advisors bring on these younger folks and say, I want them to bring in 20, 30 million in net new assets a year. Much more realistic to say, let me have that person manage a pool of business, retain the lower tier of revenue that we have, and develop over 3 to 5 years into a front-facing rainmaker or business developer. In other words, the younger advisor that you're bringing on needs a development pathway and needs training, mentorship, and somebody who's going to really take them under their wing before they can be that front-facing advisor. In other words, don't expect to immediately bring in the rainmaker. That talent has to be cultivated and has to be nurtured because society just doesn't produce a whole lot of hunters anymore, and that's the reality.
Yeah, and it's infuriating when I see these older advisors expect somebody who's 25 years old to come in and hunt at the level that they're able to execute on.
Not realistic.
But yet I'm able to model out and show them the top performing advisors. And by top performing, yes, it means income wise, but also the happiest advisors that have people in the right seats in the bus. And they know that they are the hunter as the person who is seasoned, whose network is reaching that age where they have the liquidity, their friends have the liquidity events, they have a mature market and have the skill sets to manage those higher end relationships and nurture those folks under them. But still, that paradigm is still so upside down in our industry, Penny.
It is. Yeah, that's why the independent and RIA space, I think to some extent, give folks the flexibility to have younger people come in, work with their peers, charge fees for advice versus AUM fees, and make up the margin that maybe they're not getting with bringing in a ton of assets, but still adding value and bringing on clients, in that younger gen. So there's a lot of ways to build it. I think advisors just have to be willing to do things a bit differently.
Before we wrap up, I'd like to put a different twist on this generational gap because we're having conversation about advisors being able to bridge the gap inside of their firms. Let's talk about the younger advisors being able to bridge the gap to the older clients. Where have you seen advisors successfully come in? And let's put some guardrails on this. The 28 to 35-year-old build a niche inside a baby boomer market.
Yeah, look, this is my view on it. Regardless of age, regardless of generational profile, the advisor and firm that best understands the consumer wins, period. I don't care if you've been in the business 10 years or you've been in the business 35 years. In fact, studies show that clients value an advisor with high EQ more than they value an advisor with tremendous years of experience, but not high EQ. So if you can speak directly to what the consumer needs on a day-to-day basis, and I don't mean they need investment management, they mean risk management. I mean, if you can speak in the language that the consumer, the client is talking to their spouse and their neighbors on a daily basis, the kinds of questions they're asking one another, should I apply for PPP? I'm 2 years away from retirement. Can I retire? If you're speaking in that language and answering those daily questions, it doesn't matter how old you are. You're the one who's going to attract the business. And look, we've seen that with, digital advice providers and companies that market really well to a specific consumer profile. They land the business.
Yep. And I would argue that the younger generation of advisor, they're more comfortable with the digital footprint on social media, email marketing, doing blogs. I mean, look at how fast Ritholtz Wealth has grown. And not that there are a whole bunch of millennials, but they definitely skew younger. And they have built a collaborative that has really, really grown quickly because they're willing to put that footprint out there.
I heard Josh Brown speak once and I was blown away. First of all, he's an amazing, hilarious speaker, but he said that they bring on young talent. If that young talent has the ability, first of all, has a social media presence, has the ability to captivate an audience with their content, think of that concept. In other words, this is a firm that is vetting whether their millennial talent has a social media presence. And that's one of the vetting, one of the vetting processes is seeing whether they've been able to create content that people are attracted to. I mean, it's sort of incredible. And I think it's the reality of where the industry is going.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, before we wrap up, Penny, I got to tell you, for folks that have not been following the show the last couple of weeks, Penny had challenged me to something, and I've never, ever, ever accepted any challenge whatsoever on social media. Not because I don't think the causes are great. That just isn't my style. But Penny had challenged me to eat a lemon because she had done it for a really, really good cause, Alex's Lemonade Stand. And she, speaking about having a good digital footprint and having an impact, she really had a broad reach with it. I decided to do it. But so I have a video clip I want to play you of you eating a lemon. And then, Tyrone was on with me and we decided to do it together to help your cause. I'm going to play that clip right now. I like that. She did it. Oh, she did it. Man.
That's
all right. So I'm going to do it. And Tyrone, he knew in advance. I'm challenging him and he didn't even hesitate. You ready?
Let's do it. Ooh! Oh my God.
Now, eating a lemon is as miserable as it looks. Would you agree?
You know what? It wasn't that bad for me. I said, because I'm Greek, we eat lemon all the time. I was like, this is great. So.
But I think that's a perfect example and timely of how having a bridge with the younger generation, people that are comfortable getting on social media and doing that, can help have an impact. So not just commercially for your business, but for a great organization, like the Lemonade Stand Initiative, where they're trying to fight childhood cancer. And Penny, I would not have done that if one of my older colleagues, my age or older, had asked me to eat a lemon. So that's the kind of impact your generation can have inside of our business.
And thank you for sharing that. It's a great cause. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Hey, before we wrap, Penny, could you please give listeners a little bit of an insight into your firm, Thrivos Consulting, and how you have an impact on advisors and what an engagement looks like?
Yes. So we are a practice management, coaching, and consulting organization. We're based in New York City. And we work with individual advisors and institutions. Our mission is to help folks manage change and thrive. And I'll tell you, before 2020, when I launched the business, thinking about managing change, I was thinking about demographic change, technology and its impact on pricing, and just the way that the advisory business model has changed. And what we can add to that now is, managing a global pandemic and being able to shift and adjust enough to stay relevant to clients. And so we do that one-on-one with teams in year-long engagements. We do that with groups in workshops, and we do that with firms. Leadership of some of the bigger BDs reach out to us to help bridge the gap internally with the different generations of advisors.
Penny, I really appreciate you coming on. You got to admit, you're impressed with the way I'm flipping in and out with graphics now. We're going to the next level.
You are adapting. You're a Gen Xer who can adapt. I love it.
Penny, thanks for coming on. Looking forward to our next episode.
Have a good weekend. Take care.